Well, welcome back, everybody. We had big news out of the NFL yesterday, June 7th, 2022. A story surrounding Justine Lindsay, the first openly transgender cheerleader in NFL history. And I'm going to explain to you why this news broke yesterday and what this has to do with the Carolina Panthers' upcoming season, as well as a bunch of stuff that could very well get the video taken down for hate speech. But because anytime you talk about the transgender subject, you got to be very careful what you say. But the news broke on June 7th. That's a date written 6-7 in the United States. The word female is 67. And do you think Justine Lindsay actually picked out his name? And yeah, I'll continue to call him a dude because that's exactly what he is. You can identify as whatever you want. I can identify as a multi-billionaire living in a mansion and driving a Bugatti. That doesn't mean that it's true. Yeah, I can pretend to be whatever I want, you know. I don't think people fully understand that. But notice Justine Lindsay is 56, just like Society of Jesus, just like a word I can't say. Google doesn't like that word. That's a buzzword. So here's we're going to read this story from ESPN. It says, Justine Lindsay, who is believed to be the NFL's first openly transgender cheerleader, said she is happy to break down that door and share her great accomplishment as a member of the Carolina Panthers Top Cats squad. In an Instagram post 3 months ago, Lindsay shared that she is a transgender woman and also announced she was joining the Top Cats. She said during a recent interview with BuzzFeed News that her trans identity previously had been a secret to everyone except her family. This is big, Lindsay told BuzzFeed News in a report published Saturday. I think more people need to see this. It's not because I want recognition. It's just to shed light on what's going on in the world. Yeah, I'll say. You know, it's funny. Here's her Instagram post right here. That's from March 30th, 2020, and I'm going to show you the joke behind that. But that's when she supposedly came out as being transgender, and she says she's not doing it for recognition. Yet I can guarantee you that her Instagram followers have probably skyrocketed since she made this post, with overwhelming support from all the brain-dead masses. Because again, I mean, saying that this is big and saying that, you know, that this is an amazing accomplishment, I mean, it couldn't be any further from the truth, right? I mean, again, I mean, people need to understand just how wrong this stuff is. You know, the fact that we're pushing transgenderism and homosexuality and forcing it down people's throats 24/7, 365. The fact that we're now having men who identify as women who are you know, now going to be cheerleaders in the sideline for the, you know, for the NFL. Like when I was growing up, I grew up in a community where football is a big deal, right? Western Pennsylvania, football's big. You know, high school football, college football, the NFL, it's a big deal. And growing up, when I was growing up, right, you know, the parents, they wanted the sons to play football. They wanted the daughters to cheer. And now we're acting like all of that's wrong and it needs to be, you know, everything needs to be backwards. We need to, we need to, you know, basically, I mean, if you're somebody who supports women's rights and supports equality, how's this equality? You know, this is only further taking more rights away from women, right? Now women not only have to worry about trying to beat other women to become cheerleaders in these tryouts, but now you got to worry about men It's only adding an extra level to, barriers that women have to surpass. It's like Leah Thomas, the transgender, swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, right? Where a lot of her, or I should say his, teammates come out and say that, the dude's got an unfair advantage. And a lot of people are up in arms about that. It's like, because you don't have a right to be upset about anything. You still have male genetics. It doesn't matter if you're identifying as a woman, if you take, gender replacement surgery, it doesn't matter. You're still a guy. You're still going to have male genetics. Well, how tall is Leah Thomas? Like 6'3", 200 pounds. That's bigger than I am, or 6'4", or whatever it was. I'm 6'3", 180 pounds. People need to understand that this is a joke. And for all the people that support Leah Thomas and support, Justine Lindsay, it's like, what are you really supporting? Men who can't beat men in sports, who take estrogen pills and identify as women and then dominate women in athletic competition. This shit's a joke. It's a total joke. And, again, I'm probably going to get this video taken down for what I just said, but people need to hear it. And again, I can't even say what I really want to say right now because I know that's going to get the video taken down. And again, is that freedom of speech? Just because you don't agree with something or you're offended by something doesn't mean it's wrong. And that's what people got to understand. But anyway, she comes out with this Instagram post right on March 30th. And then, they wait until June 7th to run this story. And the reason they did that is because it's 70 weeks later, like woman. Right? And that's what we're doing in society. We're redefining what a woman is. Again, is this a woman? Some guy that takes transition surgery and then, dominates women in competition. Again, it's a joke. It's not transphobic. It's a joke. Because I always used to say things like that growing up, that, women, women are not equal to men in a lot of aspects of life, for all the, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a liberal, but in general, women, they don't make the money they should in the workforce. They're not equal to men in a lot of ways. And when you're letting men, beat women in competition, that's wrong. That's not right. And you can sit there and say, well, this person identifies as a woman. It doesn't matter. It's the principle of the thing. You're still a dude at the end of the day. And again, when you're taking away rights and liberties from women, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a liberal. I'm just trying to make a point, that some things should just, and again, I don't have any issues with guy cheerleaders. If you want to be a male cheerleader, fine. But this whole thought of being, a transgender woman, that's a whole different discussion. And again, the reasons so many men want to be cheerleaders in the first place. Again, I don't know if it's the estrogen in the water or what it is, but it's also how we're redefining what a man is, right? They want men to be these emasculated, estrogen-laced, very feminine type of energy, and that's just the way it is with men. They want emasculated men who like getting plugged in the ass. And, again, if you're a male cheerleader, there's a good chance you fall into that category. And that's, we're not only redefining a man, we're also redefining a woman. And it's just like, again, is this stuff really positive for society? Is this really a good thing? And again, we know why there's a push for transgenderism and homosexuality. It's because it's about depopulation. They want to get rid of people. As much as, Bill Maher. Okay, Bill Maher, he's absolutely part of the cabal, Mr. 201 himself. But the thing is, Bill Maher is probably the closest thing that we have today of what George Carlin used to be. And if you watch Bill Maher's, I uploaded the video and it got taken down for copyright. But if you watch his video called Along for the Pride, he makes a good point talking about how starting with Joe Biden's generation through the current generation, the number of people who identify as being homosexual and transgender is literally doubling with each generation. And then he makes the joke talking about how if we stay at this current rate, we will all be gay by 2054. And he's not wrong, because the reason they want all these people is because they want to get rid of people. That's also why they say that homosexuals and transgender people have the highest suicide rates. And again, I'll probably leave it there, for as far as the rant's concerned, because you can't even, and that's the other problem, you can't even have a conversation about this stuff, right? You can't talk about anything. You can't make a joke about anything. Again, is this stuff positive for the world? This stuff's not positive, But anyway, when they mentioned last Saturday in the article, they're talking about June 4th, the date written 6/4, like transgenders 64. So it goes on to say, Lindsay, 29, is listed by the Panthers as an official member of the Top Cats 2022 roster, which was posted on the team's website in April. She told BuzzFeed News that she was so scared at first about her Instagram announcement in March, but that she is now comfortable in her historic role with the Top Cats. And again, that's a load of shit. The fact that she was scared. Why would you be scared to come out as being transgender? Today, if someone comes out as being transgender, they are going to get overwhelming support on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all these social media sites, right? It's going to be just overflowing emotional support. And that's the reason why why they're pushing homosexuality and transgenderism on people, particularly on young kids, right? High school and college. Like I'll be 31 next month. So, again, I'm not from this, emasculated, estrogen-laced society. But although there are a lot of people from my generation that probably are. But again, the thing is, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a conservative or sound sexist when I say this, but when women got rights, which is not a bad thing, I've been for women's rights my entire life. But the thing is, when women got rights, they destroyed the American family, okay? Because nowadays, children are not being raised by mom and dad. Mom and dad are both working, probably 40 to 50, in some cases 60 hours a week, right? The children are being picked up and dropped off from school, probably by a friend of the family, maybe grandparents. They're spending most of their time at home alone, even when mom and dad are at the house, because mom and dad come home from work and maybe they're arguing and fighting amongst each other. Maybe they're alcoholic. Maybe one parent is dead or in prison, or the parents are constantly fighting and arguing amongst each other. They're not, a lot of times the children are either in daycare or they're always having a babysitter, some teenage girl that just plays on her phone the whole time, or they're being raised by grandma and grandpa who spoil them and say yes to everything. These kids don't have any emotional support by the parents because the parents are not at home. And kids realize today that they're going to get emotional support if they come out as gay, right? I want to see all the people with, pronouns in their social media accounts. Look at how all these people are supporting me. And Joe Biden's tweeting things like, I just want to let you know, for all the transgender and homosexual kids out there, that you are loved and you are appreciated. See, kids want to get that. See, kids don't have emotional support from mom and dad because mom and dad aren't in their lives. They're hardly ever in their lives, and there's, I could tell a personal story about that from my own life, but I'm not going to. But the thing is that's what's going on in society. Like when I grew up in a very traditional house. My dad worked. My mom stayed at home, was a housewife. She did the dishes, she cleaned the house, she cooked the meals. My dad worked. My dad made good money. My dad, we weren't rich. I mean, we were basically the lower middle class growing up, but we weren't poor, but we were far from rich. But we had money to do things. We had money for things that we needed. We didn't necessarily have a lot of money for things that we wanted, but, we had money for things that we needed. And again, both my parents, they're both good people. My mom and dad are both hardworking, but growing up, they both understood what they needed to do. My mom understood what she needed to do as the woman, and my dad understood what he needed to do as the man. And part of the reason I didn't grow up to be such a lemming myself is because my parents were always in my life. My mom always saw that I got on the school bus and was always there to greet me when I got home. And I always looked forward to dad coming home because mom would always have dinner ready by then. And we would sit down and we would eat meals as a family. And we would talk about our day and talk about any problems we had. That doesn't exist with children today. They don't have that. They don't get the emotional support, right? If children have a problem in their life or a problem in school, they keep it bottled up or they just put it out on social media. They don't have anybody to sit there and talk about these things and talk about these issues. And again, if you grew up in a family where both parents worked, I'm not saying that you're a bad person, or I'm not saying that you're part of the problem. I'm just saying that we're losing a lot of that in society because when women became independent, women no longer needed a man. My grandma growing up on my dad's side, she never had a job. She never had a driver's license, never drove a car. And again, I'm not saying that that's the way it should be. Women should absolutely, be driving cars, working jobs, making money, being independent. It's hard to say what I'm saying right now without trying to sound sexist. I'm not trying to sound sexist. I'm trying to make a point. And again, my grandma on my mom's side, my mom to this day doesn't know whether her dad's still alive. He walked out on, my mom and her sister and her brothers, when my mom met my dad in the early 80s and really screwed over my grandma because my grandma was from that, traditional household where, she didn't work or anything or really have any skills. And then she was trying to raise the rest of her family and he really screwed over a lot of people. And unfortunately, people have that background. But in general, you have to understand that a lot of this today, a lot of the problems today are because we're redefining what a man is. We're redefining what a woman is. And children are not being raised by mom and dad. They don't have that father figure. They don't have that mother figure. And they feel like I'm going to get a lot more emotional support if I come out as being transgender. And that's the thing about, that's something about society in general when you're talking about like social media. That's why growing up in high school, because I graduated in 2010, right? My senior year of high school was a 2009, 2010 school year. So back then, that was what, YouTube was 2005, Facebook was 2007, Twitter was 2011. Snapchat didn't exist yet. TikTok didn't exist yet. We didn't have a lot of that growing up. When I was in high school, a lot of that was in its infancy. YouTube wasn't like it was today. It wasn't, such an ingrained part of society and culture. It was something that maybe you did from time to time. You watched a video or whatever. Back then, a lot of the video editing skills and things that people have today really didn't exist back then. But, like when Facebook started becoming mainstream, MySpace back then was a big deal. I mean, you talk about the Stone Age. But people would always tell me, how come you're not on these social media platforms? How come you're not doing this? I said, and it's the same reason I never really played video games that much, because I always understood that these things were a distraction. And so many people today, right, they live on this, right? They live on their phones. And that's a big problem. People are being influenced by somebody else because they're always on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. They're always being influenced by something other than, parents, people that probably should be influencing them, people that probably should be disciplining them. They're seeing agendas being pushed through social media. And I saw how social media at a young age was about building the surveillance state. And it was about, social media was being used to pull and push public opinion, get people to fall for this agenda or that agenda, But I mean, again, and this, I know I've gone on a bit of a rant, but just understand that, there are serious agendas in this world that really need to be stopped. And a lot of people are going to look at someone like Justine Lindsay and Leah Thomas as being, their hero, and they're not understanding what's really going on behind the scenes and how these people are being had, by the CIA, by the government, by the Jesuits who control it all. And, people need to really think about, and a lot of parents really need to think about what they're really doing with their children. Be there for your kids, listen to your kids. And again, I'm not saying that, because again, that's what happened to me growing up. Again, my parents are both good people, and I don't always see eye to eye with my parents, but at the end of the day, we can still have a conversation about things. Even to this day, we can still talk about things, and again, people need to turn off the television, turn off the social media, shut your phones down, and just have, and try to connect with people that you need to connect with. Have more family time. Stop living vicariously through other people is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's wrap this video up. So again, they say she's 29 years old, and again, that's football, the other F word. They're both 29. I'd like to know what her birthday was and what her birth name was. I'm sure there's even more to it, but yeah. So the Carolina Panthers, they open up the season at home. That'll be the first game Justine Lindsay is playing. That'll be September 11th of all days, 2022. I'm sure there'll be some gems week 1 of the NFL season. But notice that's 96 days later, like Carolina Panthers is 96. And the first game that she'll be on the sideline for would be August 26th, the game against the Buffalo Bills, the preseason game. And notice how that's 80 days after this news broke. And notice Baphomet sums to 80. Baphomet is both male and female, just like a transgender person pretends to be. And notice this picture right here. I mean, this picture really sums up everything that I just said, is the fact that kids today, they're worshiping Baphomet, right? They're worshiping media. They're worshiping what's coming through their smartphone. As sad as it is, that's what's going on. And see the two children looking up and worshiping Baphomet with the 2 fingers up. Remember Leah Thomas, the transgender swimmer, is known for the 2 fingers up. Again, these are satanic rituals that need to be exposed. But anyway, guys, we'll leave it there. I'll talk to everybody soon. Till next time.